You want to learn how to make a mini Manoushe at home? We're going to show you today. It's beautiful. Last video, we showed you how we make our Manoushe at our restaurant. Today, we're gonna show you how to make a Manoushe at your house, which will please and knock the socks off of your family and any guests that come over. This is a super simple recipe and most of the ingredients you should have at your house, so we're gonna walk through them really quick. Flour, which is a mix of white and wheat flour, cold room temp water, sugar and yeast mix in here, salt, olive oil. So the first step we're gonna do is Autolyse dough, which is simply just hydrating the water and the flour together to kickstart the gluten development process, and this makes for a softer, fluffier type crust that we like. So you're just gonna dump your flour into your bowl, and in here we have our mix of white and wheat. Quantities will be in the description. And then we have our water here. So this is a total of 670 grams. 60% of it is gonna go in now, and the last 70 grams of water is gonna go in later. So we're gonna make a little well here for the water to pour in. And I'm just gonna eye it. I have all my water already combined. I'm just gonna leave a little bit left. That's about what I left. And this is the majority of the water right here for the Autolyse process. And then I'm just gonna go in my hands and kind of keep working it until all the flour has been mixed in with the water. And it will get a little sticky, but that's all right. So this is still very early on, and just kind of kneading it with the fingertips, making sure we get all flour mixed in with the water. So this process of mixing the water and flour really should only take like a minute or two. The key is just to make sure there's not any dry flour kind of left in the bowl. So now we're gonna go ahead and cover it and let it rest for about 30 minutes to an hour. The Autolyse process is now done, super simple. And now we're just gonna let it rest for half an hour, and then we're gonna come back and mix everything else, which is the yeast, sugar, salt, and olive oil. We're back now. The dough has rested. It's gonna be softer to touch now, more pliable. Next step is to add in a little bit of water, sugar, and yeast. So what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna reserve some for the salt too, and the salt comes in later. I'm just gonna pour half of this by eye into the sugar and yeast mix. And then I'm just gonna kind of shake it up so that it will be easier to mix into the dough. And I'm gonna make a well in the middle here and just dump it in, and then kind of just keep folding into it until the dough is kneaded well. I'll work it into the dough, and then there's gonna be some yeast left in here. So just either work it with a spatula or work it with your hand. This should take about 10 minutes or so until we have a nice dough. Until all that, so the key here is, one, you want to make sure all that water is absorbed into the dough. You got to be patient. You're going to think, how is this water ever going to get into the dough? But the more you work it, the more it will absorb. So that's about 5 minutes with the sugar, yeast, and some water. As you can see, there's no water left in the bowl. It's definitely a lot smoother. And we just kind of worked it. I used my knuckles to kind of punch, and also the fold technique and push in. So you just keep doing that and you'll get there. So now the dough is about ready for the salt and the rest of the water. Here we have our salt. Again, measurements will be in the description. And I'm creating a small little slurry with the salt and water. For the salt and water. Okay, so now the salt and water's here, and we're just gonna repeat that process of knuckle punching and folding until all the water is out of the bowl. Trust me, the water will absorb. All right, so the salt and water are now mixed in. Again, make sure there's no more water left in your bowl. And it's still not gonna be super smooth, as smooth as you like, but it's gonna get there with the final kneading stage after we add in the olive oil. So now we're gonna add in the olive oil and knead again for another 5 minutes or so until all the olive oil is in there. Each kneading step took about 5 minutes to get the sugar, yeast, and water in there, and then another 5 minutes for the salt and water, and then the olive oil should take another 5 minutes or so. Here we have my dad's super fancy apron on with a little X cross back, which I do not like, but that's what he's got here. So now the olive oil is mixed in. It's 90% smooth, and we're gonna get to the 100% that we like in just a second. So we got a little more flour. The key here while we're kneading in the final stage is not to put too much flour, just a touch, so that you have some friction. You're just gonna work this for about 5 minutes as well. And you're kind of just pulling at the top and rolling itself underneath it. So we're done kneading it on the table. That was about a 5-minute step again. And now we're just gonna let it rest for a little bit, and we're gonna do the last stage, which is a little stretch and fold. So we'll show you that. 10 minutes are up, the dough is rested, and we're gonna do a stretch and fold process. So we just go like this and kind of fold it over itself and keep going like this. It's almost similar to kneading, but a little different. This is you just need to do like 3 to 5 times. All right, so now you just kind of want to fold it over under itself to make a nice dough ball, like that. You can use friction to help you. Put a little flour so the bottom doesn't stick. And now cover it with a little bit of olive oil. This step is not necessary, but I just like olive oil and everything. And this also helps so that your dough doesn't dry out, but we're also gonna cover it. We're gonna let it rest for 2 hours now. So it first gets its bulk rise. After it gets its bulk rise for a couple hours, we're gonna come make them into dough balls. And then again, once they're into dough balls, they're gonna rest for another hour or so before they're ready to bake. Your dough's covered, we put some olive oil for extra protection. And now 2 hours, we'll come back and turn them into dough balls.
Wake up, buddy.
Now that you know how to make an amazing crust, the only thing you're missing is a delicious za'atar blend to finish for your Manoushe. And lucky for you, we ship this directly from our website, and we even have this discount code that we're offering that you can use to make a Manoushe at home, as well as a variety of dishes, including roasted chicken with za'atar, potatoes, sprinkle on eggs. Just eat it with some bread and olive oil the good old way. Go ahead and get yourself some really good za'atar. It's been 2 hours, our dough has risen, so we're gonna take it out and start shaping it into dough balls. So I'm just gonna kind of dump it onto the table. And then if you have a dough cutter, but I'm just using this because we don't have one right now. We're gonna weigh them into 2-ounce dough balls. We're making these into mini Manoushe. If you wanna make them a little bigger, to be bigger, you can go 3 ounces, but there's plenty of videos on the internet showing you how to roll a dough ball. There's many different techniques, and these are kind of small. But for this, I'm kind of just pinching it together like you would like a dumpling, if you will. And then pinching the bottom so that there's no hole and it's completely one piece. All right, we'll do one more. It rolls better if you don't have flour on it, so roll it first without flour, and then you could just put a little flour on the bottom so it doesn't stick to the table. For some reason, this guy doesn't want to get away from the camera, but as you can see here, we rolled out these dough balls. These are all 2 ounce, and I got tired of rolling mini dough balls, so I'm just made these bigger for at-home purposes. So we're gonna let these sit out for roughly 2 hours as well to get another rise, 1.5 to 2 hours, and then we're gonna come back and finish making it into Manoushe. Now we're gonna mix the za'atar and olive oil together to make the spread. We're just gonna put some olive oil in there, probably more because we're making a couple, and then we're gonna loosely sprinkle some of our za'atar. And then you can start mixing to see that mounts, and you just kind of want like a smooth paste that lifts up. This is gonna be too much olive oil. You keep mixing till you get the right consistency feel. I'll kind of show you what it looks like from our end. This is pretty good. I would add a little more za'atar myself. All right, now that's more like it. Slightly thick, but still good amount of olive oil there. Let the dough balls rise for about 2 hours. So we're gonna go ahead and cook them on a cast iron skillet. So since I have space here, I'm just gonna flatten it out here and then go cook it there. You just need a little bit of flour or semolina. Semolina will provide a nice texture. and you kind of just knock at it a little bit lightly and try to push out any of the air pockets into the crust so you have a nice crust. I'm gonna try to slightly make it a little bigger. Usually we throw it on a pillow, but I don't have a mini pillow. Okay, so let's take it over to the skillet. So there are two methods that we're going to show you. One is the cast iron skillet method, and this is going to be closer to the Sage of how we cook it at the restaurant. And then there's the oven method if you do not have a skillet at home. They both come out really delicious. It's just a matter of preference. I personally prefer more of the Sage method, which is the skillet. I'm going to show you a couple more flanning technique. Just get a little flour to the hand, and then you're going to start in the middle, kind of push out so you have a crust. So we're gonna put a little bit of, you can do olive oil or vegetable. I'm gonna do olive oil. Just put a little bit on there once your skillet is hot, and kind of throw it right on it, and it's gonna cook. Give it like maybe a minute on this side. You can put a little bit of olive oil on this side too, because we're gonna flip it. I put too much, but it's all good. So we're gonna flip it, and this side right here is gonna cook for just a little bit, and then we're gonna spread the Za'atar, and then we're gonna put it back to finish so it gets a crunch. Maybe what I'm saying doesn't all make sense, but just watch and do as I do, not as I say always. All right, so we're gonna flip it. The top is gonna get lightly cooked, so the top we want to be, look, no, look at me. The pan's a little too hot, so I lowered it. Right now it's at, I guess, medium-high heat. So you want medium-high heat. The top we want to be just soft. So this is gonna be soft and chewy. So now we're gonna spread the Za'atar on it, and then we're gonna let the bottom cook so it gets crunchy on the bottom, but have that nice, soft, chewy top. This is our Za'atar mix. Just the Za'atar and olive oil. You want it like slightly runny. I'm gonna throw it on top, spread it. The bread feels amazing, it's fluffy. And then we're gonna crunch up the bottom with a nice contrast. Chewy top, crunchy bottom. It's always the goal. So now, so it looks like we're gonna throw it on the bottom so it gets crispy. Roughly what it should look like. We like a lot of Za'atar on ours. So we're gonna go take it to the skillet and finish it. Skillet is a little too hot, but it's all right. We just gotta watch it better. So my skillet is a little too hot and it's burning it. But we're gonna put a couple in the oven. I'm gonna put just a light drop of olive oil on the pan so that they don't stick. And just rub it like that. So for these ones, you put the Za'atar right onto it because it's gonna bake at one go. There's no flipping. So while you're spreading it, you're also kind of making the bread a little bigger too, just a little bit. Take about 5 minutes or so, but we'll check on it. So it's been about 5 minutes, 5-ish minutes at 500. We're gonna check on the oven ones. I think they're good to go. Yep, we got a nice crispy top. These ones cooked on the skillet have a softer top. That's it. So now you know how to make a Manoushe. You got these delicious varieties. Dip into some Lebanon fresh veggies, and you'll be better than me if you make it. How's my bread?
Thank you for this delicious Manoushe.
It's good, right?
Thank you, Johnny.